Hey, El Paso Mixers, this is your friend Chito again, back at it with another interview for you guys. Now, we have a great honor of interviewing the owner of the Lowbrow Palace. Hey, Christian, how are you?
I'm good. These guys?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thank you so much for giving us the time to do this. And we know that this venue is very popular. We've come often here because we're fans of music, right? So we want to get a little bit more, get to know a little bit more about your business, right? And of course, the very first question is Lowbrow Palace. What's the name? How did it originate?
Well, for us, when before the venue actually used to be owned by Austin, who now owns multiple other venues in town. But once they had established the name, they kind of owned it, I believe, for about 2 or 3 years, and then we kind of took over from them. When he was here, the company was actually already booking shows with him, but it came to the point where we actually acquired the Lowbrow Palace from them, so they were kind of like the masterminds behind the name.
Oh, okay. Do you know by any chance how?
No, I
that
don't
came to be?
actually. I should do some research on that.
Do some research on that. Although we do see our little friend dinosaur over there.
Everywhere, right?
Does that guy have a name?
Just Dino. The main story with him is he used to be at I don't know if you guys ever heard of Putt Golf.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, so he used to.
I'm young enough to remember.
Yeah, he used to. Me too.
Or old enough? I don't even know.
Could
right?
go either way, huh? He used to reside at Putt Golf, and once they closed, he kind of ended up here, so they kind of kept him as looks.
Cool. Now, when you started, or when you acquired this business, do you remember any like milestones since you've had it?
Well, I mean, like I said, before even the company owned it, we had already been doing some pretty big shows here. One of them being like Foster the People, which was, I think, like, maybe 7, 8 years ago, which is before they had that Pumped Up Kick song that really, like, threw them, I guess, into popularity. Other than that, what's really cool is that we actually have like a lot of the big shows that we used to have back then. So like Twin Shadow.
Right.
It's amazing because we have a lot of the same bands now that we used to have back then that we end up bringing back. And it's interesting having the same band that was once here when they were playing to a room of, like, for example, Foster the People, I think played to like 15 or 20 people. It wasn't a big show, but I mean, if we had them here now, we'd have to do at least like 5 shows to just accommodate them.
Absolutely. Now, with that in mind, with all the shows that you guys had, what's like the wildest one that you can remember?
The wildest one. Well, I know we once had DRI. I don't know if you guys are familiar with DRI. It's like this old school kind of punk band. And when we had them, we actually at one point ran out of alcohol. We ran out of beer. And I think they were on like maybe at midnight, and I think we ran out of beer like at 10 p.m., 11 p.m.
Wow.
So I mean, I'd
Super
say,
early.
yeah. So I mean, I think that's the first time we ever like ran out literally of alcohol. So that was, I think, one of the craziest shows I've done for sure.
Wow, no, definitely with no alcohol. I can't even imagine.
And you can imagine, like, with the punk band in here with 300 people, it gets pretty wild.
Wow, they didn't need alcohol to riot.
Yeah,
feel
not
that
at all.
vibe.
Yeah, the anger was already there because we had run out of alcohol.
Right. And now, you personally, like, what have been like your favorite bands that you've had the honor of having?
For me, even like today, I think is probably going to be my favorite show that I've ever booked personally. Today is Creed Bratton. And I'm a huge fan of The Office. I started watching it like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so if you had told me 5 years ago that I'd be booking like Creed Bratton at a club, I would have called you a liar. But I mean, now we're here today, and he was here a few minutes ago sound checking, and just like seeing literally Creed on stage, I was like, dang, like, this is wild. I would have never thought that I would be in this scenario.
Wow, yeah, no, it sounds unbelievable.
It is. Sometimes it is.
And how about any artists or any band that you're hoping or would love to host here in Lowbrow?
For me personally, like, some of my favorite bands are bands like Arctic Monkeys, Kings of Leon. Obviously, those are like huge bands that would be very hard to accommodate here. But as we're going to be relocating to a new venue that's going to fit. Right now we're at 300 cap here,
right?
But the new one's going to fit 500 inside and 2,500 outside.
Is that the one that's projected to be like in downtown?
Yes, on Texas Street.
Right.
So I mean, once we get that, that 2,500 people, that's going to open the doors for a lot bigger shows.
Yeah. Well, that's good because you kind of read my mind. That was going to be my next question. What were the big things or new things in the works for it, but
Right.
that being that, I think it's going to be a great opportunity to showcase even more artists or bigger artists. It's going to bring good attention. Now, with the music scene and everything, how do you see it, the music scene here in El Paso and Juarez? Because we know we're a border city and we've had people coming from Juarez play over here,
Sure.
or people local from here in El Paso. How do you see that?
Honestly, I personally would like to see a lot more Juarez bands playing over here. Me personally, I mean, I know like bands, or I'm sorry, Ligre, Fools Like Me, Diz Brew. I've always wanted to book Mala Yerba and I've never been able to. So like for me, there's been a lot. I personally would like to meet more Juarez bands so that I can get them to play over here. I know sometimes it can be an issue, when they want to bring over equipment from
Right.
Juarez and they get, hassled kind of by the border, and I wish that was something that we could work on more kind of as a community to
Right,
find
of
some
course.
type of way where we can get more Juarez bands over here. And on the same page, more El Paso bands of Juarez. I know recently Pilots of Venus played in Juarez. Obviously Acid Pie every now and then plays in Juarez. But I think maybe even, exposing the El Paso bands more to the Juarez music scene. What venues exactly are out there so that we can,
Right.
also start playing a bit more.
Right. So as you touch on how we can better work as a community, what would you maybe change or suggest to the actual music scenes, to the bands, or to the people involved to make this a better transition, or make this possible? Do you have any suggestions?
Well, I think maybe being that maybe the equipment is the biggest issue. I think if more of the bands here in El Paso can maybe provide the equipment for the Juarez bands, whether it's like the drums or the bass amps and the guitar rigs, I think things like that would maybe enable the Juarez bands to only have to bring over like their guitars, for example, or their sticks. If that's one of the major issues that's happening, I know with Pilots of Venus and Diz Brew, I think they work together in that sense, where even when Pilots of Venus went to Juarez, I believe Diz Brew provided basically like all the equipment, so that they wouldn't have to worry about carrying this huge stuff over the border. So I think maybe better relationships between the bands. I feel like the bands here in El Paso have kind of developed that with each other.
Right.
Where when we have shows, like we'll get one band to provide like drums, one band to provide the bass rig.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think from my knowledge that I've seen, like in Juarez, bands do that a lot, amongst themselves. But maybe building more of that relationship between the El Paso and Juarez bands, so we can do it with each other, vice versa.
Cool. That's very good points, and hopefully the people that are listening or that may be able to facilitate that pay attention.
Yeah.
Now, as a business owner, for anyone that's starting a business, do you have any advice for them?
I don't know. I guess.
I know it's kind of hard to just say.
Yeah, sure. Don't shy away from the opportunity. A lot of people are kind of scared to quit that comfortable job, the 8 to 5 or whatever it is. And once you come to like, oh, well, I have to register, the business, and I have to start collecting receipts and do taxes. And although at first I think it might seem scary, but it's really taking the dive is what separates you really from the people doing and the people not. It's really just taking that initial step to try it. Whether it fails or succeeds, I think really it's just that initial step of actually trying it, seeing that it's not maybe as difficult as it sounds.
Right. Cool deal. And now, kind of the same thing, but different position.
Sure.
As a venue owner, any suggestions or advice for artists?
As far as
As maybe coming here or approaching you, or if I'm a band and should I just knock on the door,
Sure.
of course not be shy? What kind of advice would you give bands since you've had a lot of bands come through your place?
Obviously putting like a name to a face makes a big difference. So, it's very different from getting just like an email, and then for me to get an email and then the next day the band comes up and I'm like, oh, well, that shows initiative. A lot of bands kind of just send emails and you never really hear back from them again. And I think they just don't understand that like venues and promoters get hundreds and thousands of emails, from all types of bands. So when you get like an email that just says like, hi, I'm in a band and I want to play, it's like, oh, now there has to be a conversation that has to be had at that point, So if you can initiate the conversation, but with as much information as possible. And again, putting a name to a face, showing up to the venue and saying, hey, I sent you an email, did you get it? Is it better if I contact you via telephone? Basically being, consistent and not feeling discouraged after not getting an initial email or reply. Sometimes it takes a few attempts to kind of get someone's attention, whether it's a venue promoter or anyone else.
Yeah, I mean that's great advice, because I know some people like struggle or really just rely on sending an email if no one answers. Like, oh, he said no, right? When
Sure.
it's really you need a little bit more of engagement.
Yeah,
maybe.
absolutely. So just providing as much information as you can, like upfront.
Right. Cool deal. And now, just to kind of wrap up, this is kind of our signature question.
Sure.
What do you love most about El Paso?
About El Paso, honestly, I have to say it's a community. You know, just among artists, like it's really nice seeing like when you come to a show, like everyone knows each other. You know, everyone hugs, shakes hands, like drinking together, or even hanging out like after shows. So I think what I like the most is kind of the community that everyone kind of builds, you know, with each other. It's not something where like you go out and people are kind of, you know, to themselves. And I think maybe that's the way that El Paso was in the past, but I think it's developed into something where people are a lot more open to, you know, just having a random conversation with someone that you meet. And you see it here a lot, you know, where people here become friends, whether they're artists or fans. Like, there's always some type of communication between the people.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. That is very true. And I want to thank you for giving us your time to talk about your business, talk about your stories and everything. And I would encourage everyone that's watching. I mean, if you're a band, if you heard it, they're interested. If you're from Juarez, you even heard it louder, hopefully, that they want to have more Juarez bands. So hopefully you can stay in touch with him. You can always follow us in El Paso Mix. We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course the Lowbrow has the same social media outlets: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Hopefully you enjoyed this interview, and we'll stay in touch. Till next time, mixers.